Twilight Masquerade is the latest Pokémon TCG expansion and was released on May 24th, 2024. That means I'm overdue for a set review, and there are some cards that really stand out for the format GLC or Gym Leader Challenge for anyone new. You can check out gymleaderchallenge.com to learn more about this format and its rules. As usual, I'll skip all the cards not legal for GLC to save time. Let's begin by mowing through the grass types. Tangrowth. It's tanky, its ability Thicket Body allows it to take 30 less damage from attacks, so it works well with heal cards like Mallow and Lana. It's also okay without them, and overall it's not great, but it's definitely playable. Pinsir is generally bad because effects of attacks are removed after moving out of the active spot. Slow Crunch applies an effect on the opposing active Pokemon, so it can be removed easily. The grass type has better basic Pokemon like Shining Genesect. Ariados has the ability Big Net. Your opponent's active evolution Pokemon's retreat cost is colorless more. It's a decent ability, however, it only affects evolution Pokemon, and it does not affect opposing Pokemon with Floatstone because Floatstone gives the Pokemon no retreat cost. It could be used as a cheap attacker to knock out Pokemon like Guzzlord, so it's okay overall, but maybe not worth the deck space. Sunflora is really good against decks with a lot of fire energy and is otherwise really bad. You're better off using the Bright Beam Sunflora from Silver Tempest. Heracross. It's an okay basic attacker, but the grass type has better options for this role. Volbeat has the attack Quick Sign. If you go first, you can use this attack during your first turn. Search your deck for up to 2 basic Pokemon and put them onto your bench. Most GLC decks prefer going second to be able to use an attack on the first turn, but Volbeat gives grass decks more options going first. To maximize the use of Volbeat, you can play more switch cards and free retreat grass Pokemon. Elumise has the attack Slowing Perfume. You can use this attack only if you go second, and only during your first turn. Shuffle one of your opponent's benched Pokemon and all attached cards into their deck. This attack is cool, but I can't recommend it for most grass decks because the disruption can only happen on turn 1 going second. Trevenant has the attack Giga Drain, which deals 50 damage without modifiers, and it heals Trevenant for the same amount it deals to the opposing active Pokemon. With damage modifiers like Sunny Day Lurantis and Muscle Band, Trevenant can be fairly threatening. Thwackey has the ability Boom Boom Groove. Once during your turn, if your active Pokemon has the Festival Lead ability, you may search your deck for a card and put it into your hand, then shuffle your deck. The only Grass-type Pokemon with the Festival Lead ability is Diplin, and the ability is very good. In comparison, Le Parfum on Roserade searches for a card once when played from hand, and it always has been good. Boom Boom Groove requires more setup, but is easier to activate multiple times. The new Thwackey can be played in any grass deck that already has Rillaboom. If you don't play Diplin, other Thwackey cards tend to be better. Rillaboom has 180 HP and can deal 180 damage with Woodhammer for just 2 grass energy. It is a solid card, but Voltage Beat Rillaboom tends to be better because it provides support. I might consider the new version for decks that have low energy requirements. Speaking of Diplin, Diplin has the ability Festival Lead. If Festival Grounds is in play, this Pokemon may use an attack it has twice. Its attack Do the Wave deals 20 damage for each of your benched Pokemon. Grass decks tend to put lots of Pokemon into play, so the attack will consistently deal a lot of damage. It also has synergy with Thwackey from the set. Its main downside is that it depends on Thwackey or Festival Grounds to have a greater impact, so it is affected by bad pricing. Still, I can see it played in many grass decks. Iron Leaves has the attack Avenging Edge, which deals 100 damage without modifiers. If any of your Pokemon were knocked out by damage from an attack during your opponent's last turn, this attack does 60 more damage. The grass Pokemon card pool already has a revenge attacker in Tropius. Iron Leaves needs more energy but can deal more damage. I think it is relatively playable, but it needs to be played alongside energy accelerators like Rillaboom or Cherrim. Sinistra has 2 good attacks. Cursed Drop puts 4 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon in any way you like, and Spill the Tea discards up to 3 grass energy cards from your Pokemon, dealing 70 damage for each energy you discard. This Pokemon can be used to spread damage or knock out a Pokemon with a high HP stat. Sinistra itself has a low 70 HP stat, but the Pokemon is still good enough to be played in some aggressive grass decks or a grass spread deck. Teal Mask Ogerpon can be a useful early game card, but it is not very good overall. I don't recommend playing it. Burning our way to fire types, we have Ninetales. Eerie Glow can be useful in decks that rely on status conditions, but I prefer Ninetales Dance Ninetales for the option of hitting bench Pokemon. Torkoal is an average basic fire attacker. I tend to prefer concentrated fire Torkoal for higher damage potential or other attackers like Entei. Infernape has the ability Pyro Dance. Once during your turn, you may attach a basic fire energy card, a basic fighting energy card, or one of each from your hand to your Pokemon in any way you like. The ability is good alongside cards like Professor's Letter that can search for energy from the deck, and cards like Superior Energy Retrieval that can recover energy from the discard pile. I expect to see decks built around this Pokemon in the future. Darmanitan has the attack Inferno Onrush, which deals 210 damage and inflicts 70 recoil damage. The attack relies on energy acceleration, though fire decks have no shortage of such options. I can see this in decks that lack heavy hitters, but not in most decks. Chandelure has the ability Alluring Light. Once during your turn, you may have each player draw a card. Letting your opponent draw cards tends to be bad. The attack is okay, but does not make up for the ability. You are better off playing Mystical Fire Delphox. Chi-Yu. This version can draw cards and remove a stadium, but I prefer Mega Fire of Envy, Chi-Yu, which can accelerate energy and has higher damage potential. Splashing into water types, Poliwrath has the attack Jumping Uppercut, which deals 120 base damage. You may do 120 more damage. If you do, shuffle this Pokemon and all attached cards into your deck. For how strong this attack can be, it can be difficult to set up Poliwrath multiple times in GLC, which is a singleton format. I would lean towards other Pokemon like Feraligatr that are similar but stay on the field. Goldeen is not very good in GLC even with Festival Grounds in play. Seaking has low damage output and is generally not worth playing. Jinx has a unique attack in Inviting Kiss. Search your deck for a basic Pokemon and put it onto your bench, then shuffle your deck. If you put any Pokemon onto your bench in this way, move an energy from this Pokemon to the new benched Pokemon. The attack is cool, but it does not justify playing this card except in the most energy-hungry decks. Crawdaunt is a decent attacker, but given the energy requirements, it should be played with energy acceleration. Wailord is definitely better, and Satitan fits in decks with more special energy, but Crawdaunt can be useful in decks with more basic energy. Milotic has the ability Mentally Calm. Your opponent's Pokemon in play and all attached cards cannot be put into your opponent's hand. It blocks the effects of cards like Scoop Up Net and AZ, which does not affect most decks. Other Milotic cards tend to be better in GLC. Glalie is an average Stage 1 water attacker. Glalie and Frostlass both evolve from Snorunt, so Glalie can give you an extra attacking option. It's decent, but not good. Frostlass has the ability Freezing Shroud. During Pokemon Checkup, put 1 damage counter on each Pokemon that has an ability, except any Frostlass. This card can be played in water spread decks that have fewer abilities or more healing cards like Rough Seas. Fione has the attack Beckon, which puts a supporter from your discard pile into your hand. It can be useful in a control deck to recover an important supporter card for a future turn, but it is not generally good. Cramorant has the attack Spit Shot. Discard all energy from this Pokemon. This attack does 120 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon. This attack can be useful against any deck that does not have bench protection. Even against bench protection, the attack can still hit the active Pokemon. The biggest problem is reliance on energy acceleration. Cramorant is not amazing, but it is a solid attacker. The new Iron Bundle is not very good and not recommended for competitive play. Just play Hyper Blower Iron Bundle instead. Walking Wake has the attack Undulating Slice. Put up to 9 damage counters on this Pokemon. This attack does 20 damage for each damage counter you placed in this way. It is comparable to Spiteful Scythe Frostlass. Frostlass tends to be better since it only requires 1 energy to attack. Walking Wake is a basic attacker with more health but needs 3 energy to attack. The higher damage potential makes it worth considering in decks with energy acceleration. Emergency Jelly by itself is just short of helping Walking Wake, though there are ways to make it work. Zing Zapping into the Lightning type, Zapdos has the attack Thunderbolt, which deals 190 damage and discards all energy from itself. The high damage output makes it worth considering in Lightning decks alongside accelerators like Flaffy and Electric. Emolga has the attack Sky Wave, which deals 10 damage to each bench Pokemon and the active Pokemon. This makes it a natural part of Lightning spread decks. In other decks, Call for Family Emolga is better since it sets up the bench. Heliolisk is not very good and not recommended for serious play. Morpeko has the ability Snack Seek. Once during your turn, you may look at the top card of your deck. You may discard that card. It is the same ability as Excavate on Sableye, which has seen some play. Morpeko has a useful energy acceleration attack, so I think Morpeko can be useful in decks that don't have Green's Exploration. Bellibolt is an average Stage 1 Lightning attacker. There are better options like Electivire, so I don't recommend this card. Kilowattrel is an attacker. Wind Power Charge sets up its second attack, but the Pokemon TCG only allows 1 attack per turn at the end of that turn. This kind of setup is slow and not good. Teleporting to our Psychic types, Clefable has the attack Metronome. Choose one of your opponent's active Pokemon's attacks and use it as this attack. This is a very good attack against Pokemon like Amazing Rare Raikou, Special Waves Wailord, and other strong attackers. Psychic already has Copycat Mimikyu, but Clefable has its own niche since it does not require your opponent to have used the attack. Clefable will see competitive play, though it may take some time to find its niche. Alakazam has an average attack in Psychic. Its first attack is interesting, but it is outclassed by Sinister Hand on Dusknoir. There are better Stage 2 Pokemon to run than Alakazam. Farigiraf has the attack Wonderful Rumble, which deals 40 damage for each of your Stage 1 Pokemon in play, including Farigiraf. Psychic has several great Stage 1 Pokemon, making Farigiraf a decent attacker. I might build a deck centered around Farigiraf in the future. Chimecho is not very good and not recommended for serious play. Florges has the ability Captivating Invitation. Once during your turn, you may flip a coin. If heads, switch in one of your opponent's bench Pokemon to the active spot, and the new active Pokemon is now confused. Confusion as a status condition is not very good without support. For now, there are better Stage 2 Psychic Pokemon. Swirlix is not good by itself. Even with Festival Grounds in play, it is similar to Spectrier. Slurpuff is a below average Stage 1 Psychic attacker. I don't recommend this card. Palossand is an average Stage 1 Psychic attacker. It has decent damage and works best with Energy Acceleration. Not great, but playable. Enamorus is very strong in a Psychic type Mirror matchup and below average otherwise. It should see play in Psychic type only GLC tournaments and no play otherwise. Monkey Dory has the ability Adrenabrain. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon has any Dark Energy attached, you may move up to 3 damage counters from one of your Pokemon to one of your opponent's Pokemon. The ability works well alongside cards like Giratina that put damage onto your own Pokemon, and it punishes spread decks. The Dark Energy requirement is easy to satisfy in GLC, so I expect to see decks built around Monkey Dory. Pheasantipede has the ability Adrenopheromone. If this Pokemon has any Dark Energy attached and is damaged by an attack, flip a coin. If heads, prevent that damage. The ability is very good and is similar to Infiltrator on Dragapult, a solid card, and it works well alongside Pokemon like Shining Mew and Psychic Mirage Gardevoir. I expect to see this played in some Psychic decks. Punching through to the Fighting type, Sandslash is a generic Earthquake attacker, so it may see play in such decks. Hisuian Arcanine has the attack Proud Fangs. If your benched Pokemon have any damage counters on them, this attack does 90 more damage. The bench damage is easy to set up with an Earthquake attacker or Rainbow Energy. I expect to see this card in decks with limited Energy Acceleration. Probopass is a decent Stage 1 fighting attacker. Assault Laser deals 80 base damage, and if your opponent's active Pokemon has a Pokemon tool attached, this attack does 80 more damage. There are many tools in GLC, so the attack is alright. The fighting type has some Energy Acceleration to satisfy the high energy requirements in Colossal and Garganacl. Not great, just okay. Conkeldurr has the attack Gutsy Swing. If this Pokemon is affected by a special condition, ignore all energy in this attack's cost. There are some cards that inflict a status condition to your own Pokemon, but such strategies are unreliable in a singleton format like GLC. For now, Conkeldurr won't see much play. Hawlucha has the attack Prize Count, which deals 50 base damage. If you have more prize cards remaining than your opponent, this attack does 90 more damage. With a little bit of energy acceleration, Hawlucha is a decent card to keep up in a prize race. I could see it played in some low energy decks. Glimmora has the attack Venoshock, which deals more damage if the opposing active Pokemon is poisoned. The fighting type is not known for having much poison support, though there are cards like Hypnotoxic Laser and Koga's Trap that work for all decks. This version might not see much play now since Shattering Crystal Glimmora is better, though it'll be better with more poison support in the future. Tinglu has the attack Ground Crasher, which deals 30 base damage. If a stadium is in play, this attack also does 30 damage to each of your opponent's benched Pokemon, and discard that stadium. The fighting type has a couple of good spread damage attackers like Palossand, so this card will see play in spread fighting decks. Okidogi has the ability Adrenapower. If this Pokemon has any dark energy attached, it gets plus 100 HP, and the attacks it uses do 100 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. There are plenty of special energies that provide dark energy like one of the unit energies, so activating the ability is easy. When its ability is active, Okidogi has more HP and deals more damage than most Pokemon in the format. This card is incredible for GLC, and I expect to see decks built around this card. Time to Enlighten the Dark type. The new Mightyena card is not very good. Same goes for Scolipede, though its first attack can be useful against tanky Pokemon like Wailord. The new Brute Bonnet is outclassed by the version with Toxic Powder. I don't think any of these cards are good for GLC, so I'll skip this type. Pushing through to the Metal type, Skarmory is just an okay basic Metal Pokemon, with no high damage potential. I don't think this one is good. Aggron has the attack Guard Claw, which deals 120 damage, and during your opponent's next turn, it takes 50 less damage from attacks. If you can set up Aggron, it'll probably stay on the field for multiple turns. You might see this in some damage reduction strategies. Heatran has the ability Incandescent Body. If this Pokemon is in the active spot and is damaged by an attack from your opponent's Pokemon, the attacking Pokemon is now burned. It also has the attack Steel Burst. Discard all metal energy from this Pokemon. This attack does 50 damage for each card you discarded in this way. Heatran is a solid attacker, especially in decks with good energy acceleration and a lot of energy cards. Revavroom has the attack Rally Back, which deals 30 base damage, and if any of your Pokemon were knocked out by damage from an attack during your opponent's last turn, this attack does 90 more damage. The attack is similar to those of other revenge attackers like Grudge Dive on Hisuian Basculegion. This card is very good. The only problem is that Rumbling Engine Revavroom is incredible, and you can only choose one Revavroom card for a single deck. If Metal ever gets more draw support Pokemon, maybe the new card will see play, but I don't recommend playing it over the other one for now. With a roar, here come the dragons. Twilight Masquerade introduced a Dragon-type Applin, which means that Flapple and Appleton are now playable in Dragon GLC decks. The set also introduces Diplin, which has the attack Syrup Catcher. Switch in one of your opponent's benched Pokemon to the active spot. This attack does 70 damage to the new active Pokemon. This attack is okay and can target a weak support Pokemon. Diplin benefits a lot from the fact that its attack energy types match those of other relevant Dragon GLC Pokemon like Regidrago. Also, Diplin evolves into Hydrapple, which doesn't have a card yet. Even so, Diplin is a decent addition to existing Dragon decks. Dracloak has the ability Recon Directive. Once during your turn, you may look at the top 2 cards of your deck and put one of them into your hand, put the other card on the bottom of your deck. This ability is exactly like Airmail on Pidgeotto. It's a good ability. There is no Dragon-type Dragapult legal for GLC, but Dracloak is a decent support Pokemon, so it can be played on its own without its evolution. Tatsugiri has the ability Attract Customers. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon is in the active spot, you may look at the top 6 cards of your deck, reveal a supporter card you find there, and put it into your hand. Shuffle the other cards back into your deck. This ability is very good, and Tatsugiri's 1 retreat cost makes it easy to pair with U-Turn Board. I expect to see this card in many Dragon GLC decks. I ran out of transitions, so here's the colorless type. Farfetch'd has the ability Impromptu Carrier. When you play this Pokemon from your hand onto your bench during your turn, you may search your deck for a Pokemon tool card and attach it to this Pokemon. Then shuffle your deck. Using this ability, you can get TM Turbo Energize or TM Evolution and set up your bench. I think this card is playable, but there are already many ways to grab tool cards like Adventure Bag and Arven, so this card probably won't be played even in decks that want to use a TM. Snorlax is a tanky basic Pokemon that is capable of dealing a lot of damage, but Thumping Snorlax is better for the most part, so I don't think the new Snorlax will be played. Ambipom has the ability Wicked Tail. When you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon during your turn, you may flip 2 coins. For each heads, choose a random card from your opponent's hand. Your opponent reveals those cards and shuffles them into their deck. This is useful and can fit into existing control strategies. In a format without EX or V Pokemon, the new Swanna card is not very useful. Those of you paying close attention may have noticed I skipped some non-rulebox Pokemon. I skipped most not fully evolved Pokemon since most of them are not that important. Leafeon and Glaceon are fully evolved Pokemon that evolve from a different type of Pokemon, namely Eevee. Such Pokemon are difficult to put into play normally, and are usually not worth the effort of doing so. Also, Palafin is fully evolved, but is not useful without Palafin EX, which is not legal for GLC, so Palafin is not worth playing in GLC. That's it for the Pokemon. Let's take a look at the trainer and energy cards. Accompanying Flute. Reveal the top 5 cards of your opponent's deck. You may choose any number of basic Pokemon you find there and put those Pokemon onto their bench. Your opponent shuffles the other cards back into their deck. This can be a decent control card to play alongside Echoing Horn and Captivating Pokepuff. Bug Catching Set. Look at the top 7 cards of your deck. You may reveal up to 2 in any combination of grass Pokemon and basic grass energies you find there and put them into your hand. Shuffle the other cards back into your deck. This is similar to Great Ball, but is much, much better for general grass decks. Caretaker. Draw 2 cards. If you drew any cards in this way, and if Community Center is in play, shuffle this Caretaker into your deck instead of discarding it. This is one of many draw 2 supporter cards that are not good. Carmine. If you go first, you may use this card during your first turn. Discard your hand and draw 5 cards. Discarding your hand is a high cost in a singleton format like GLC, and drawing 5 cards makes it worse than Professor's research outside of turn 1. Fetching Carmine going first on turn 1 is not particularly consistent, so I don't recommend building with it. Community Center. Once during each player's turn, if they played a supporter card from their hand this turn, they may heal 10 damage from each of their Pokemon. For context, there can be at most 1 Stadium card in play at any time during any game of the Pokemon TCG. That means there's a lot of Stadium disruption in GLC. Healing 10 damage is not much, so I don't expect this card to be played much. Cook is a reprint and doesn't see much play. Enhanced Hammer is also a reprint and is played in some control decks. Festival Grounds. Each Pokemon that has any energy attached recovers from all special conditions and can't be affected by any special conditions. This card counters some strategies that rely on status conditions like Dark Poison and Lightning Shocklock, and it works well with Diplin and Thumping Snore Snorlax. However, the effect otherwise does not matter often, and there are better stadiums for most decks. Handheld Fan. If the Pokemon this card is attached to is in the active spot and is damaged by an attack from your opponent's Pokemon, even if this Pokemon is knocked out, move an energy from the attacking Pokemon to one of your opponent's benched Pokemon. This card is bad and only fits in some specific strategies. Hassle. You can use this card only if any of your Pokemon were knocked out during your opponent's last turn. Look at the top 8 cards of your deck and put up to 3 of them into your hand. Shuffle the other cards back into your deck. This card is okay, but it is generally outclassed by a similar card, Teammates, which lets you search for 2 cards on the whole deck. If you are already playing Teammates, you could consider this card, but I would otherwise just play Teammates instead. Also, too many cards that only work on Knockout can hurt a deck's consistency. Jamming Tower. Pokemon tools attached to each Pokemon have no effect. This effect has appeared before on the card Lysander Labs, which does not see much play. Stopping tool cards is good, but not on a Stadium card that can be removed easily. Kieran. Choose one. Switch your active Pokemon with one of your benched Pokemon, or during this turn, attacks used by your Pokemon do 30 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon EX or active Pokemon V. In a format with no EX or V Pokemon, this card only provides a switch option. Other supporters that provide a switch are better, specifically Birdkeeper and Tayton Liza. Sorry, Kieran. Lana's Aid. Put up to 3 in any combination of Pokemon that don't have rule blocks and basic energy cards from your discard pile into your hand. This card is very good. Water and Psychic decks have better versions of this effect, Nessa and Tulip, but this card can be useful for other types. It has some stiff competition with Clara, but unlike Clara, it provides the option of retrieving 3 Pokemon or retrieving 3 basic energy. I expect to see this card in several decks. Love Ball. Search your deck for a Pokemon with the same name as one of your opponent's Pokemon in play, reveal it, and put it into your hand. This card could be okay in some water decks for the Water Mirror matchup, since both decks likely play the Inteleon evolution line, and water is one of the most common types for GLC play. Otherwise, it is useless for most matchups, so I can't recommend this card. Lucian. Each player shuffles their hand and puts it on the bottom of their deck. If either player put any cards on the bottom of their deck in this way, each player flips a coin. If heads, that player draws 6 cards. If tails, they draw 3 cards. This kind of hand disruption is similar to Alima, which does not see serious play, and I expect the same from Lucian. Lucky Helmet is another reprint and doesn't see much play. Ogre's Mask is unplayable in GLC and should be avoided except for April Fool's videos. Imagine making one. Perrin. Reveal up to 2 Pokemon in your hand and put them into your deck. If you do, search your deck for up to that many Pokemon, reveal them, and put them into your hand. This card is essentially twice the effect of Pokemon Communication, which is playable in several GLC decks, specifically alongside Pokemon like Skiploom and Jumpluff that work best when a Pokemon is in the deck rather than in hand. Perrin can be useful alongside these types of cards. Rhyfort. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck and discard any number of them. Put the other cards back in any order. This card has similarities to Battle Compressor and Cypher Maniac's Code Breaking, but I can't recommend playing this card. It's inconsistent and doesn't compare well to other supporter cards in power level. Boomerang Energy. If this card is discarded by an effect of an attack used by the Pokemon this card is attached to, attach this card from your discard pile to that Pokemon after attacking. This card can be played alongside any Pokemon that can discard it for its attack, like Lazy Slacking. It doesn't fit in most decks, but it can be good in the ones it does fit in. Here are my concluding thoughts. Fighting and Dragon got some amazing cards in this set. Okidoki and Tatsugiri are good going forward. Water, Psychic, and Lightning decks got some solid new cards. Bug Catching set is good for grass decks, and Heatran is interesting for metal decks. Dark and Colorless decks received very little from this set, but there's always the next set to look forward to. Outside of Lana's Aid, most Trainer and Energy cards are just alright for GLC. Twilight Masquerade is an average TCG expansion for GLC, but most sets are average. Personally, I'm looking forward to collecting some of the illustration cards from the set, parent, and building some decks with the new cards. As always, thanks for watching, and let me know what you think of Twilight Masquerade. Peace.